Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to a fresh episode of ACP Live Monday. I am Demi Salaboide, and it's my pleasure to have you join me for this program. For those who may be joining us for the first time, ATP Live Monday is a program where you get to ask the pediatricians your questions live, and we'll try to answer them in the next 6 minutes. And so, whether you're watching me on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. And I decided to start 5 minutes early today because I want to make sure we go straight to answering questions. So I've used the first 5 minutes to make sure all the links have been shared and they have been pinned to all the groups. So if you're watching on Facebook, you have to make sure you click on the video and put in your question, and then I'll be able to see your questions. And if you're watching on Instagram, just drop your questions. I will be seeing them straight away. And for the very first time, I've gotten the Instagram live from StreamYard correctly. And so you are those on Instagram, you're actually watching exactly what those on Facebook are watching, as well as those on YouTube. So welcome everyone. Please start to drop your questions. HCP Live is just an opportunity for you to ask your questions live and to get your answers straight away. But remember that beyond this 1 hour session, if you still have any questions on the health of your children, you can post it directly on our Facebook group, Ask the Pediatrician Facebook group, and we will answer your questions between Mondays and Saturdays, any time of the day or the night. So feel free to post your questions there. And if you have questions on other health issues, you can post on ATP Family. And for those with first-time mom, we also have the FTM group. And for those who are bereaved and want some emotional support, we also have that group as well. So we have 4 Facebook groups. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, we're on podcast, so we're on TikTok. Please make sure you follow us on all our social media handles, and you can also go to our website, and so you can watch all the past episodes of all these programs, including the ATP Hour, which we do on Thursday, which is the teaching section, anytime for you to learn. And if you have any questions, for those who are watching the repeat or the replay, feel free to also post your questions on our Facebook group, and we will try and answer them as soon as we can. So thank you so much for joining me. Feel free to share the video, invite your friends, family, everyone to come and watch ATP Live Monday and ask any questions they have. We got 60 minutes and I've not seen any question whatsoever. So I'm here and I'm ready to answer any questions you have. So let's start the questions coming. For those from ATP Facebook group, I know some of you are not very familiar with the fact that you have to click on the video now. So make sure if you just put your comments, I will not see them unless you if you don't put it under the video, I will not be able to see them. So make sure you put your comments directly under the video, because right now I can't see any comments. So if you are there and you're watching, you're there, just drop a comment. If you don't have any questions yet, drop a comment so I know that other people are listening to me and they're watching me, so I can see people on Instagram, so we know we're live. And I hope you can hear me. Let me make sure my volume is up. All right, so if you have questions, please ask your questions. We have just 60 minutes and then we will try and answer your question. But feel free to also after the live session, you can post your questions on our Facebook group, and we'll try and answer them as well. Also, we have the podcast session where you can also, okay, listening, but I can't see your comments. The comments are not coming to me here. Okay, so I don't know why the comments on Instagram is not showing. Bad. I'm gonna sit here, so I will get them through my phone as well. So I can't see any questions correctly. You said the lock power updates on me and telling me that you can hear me. So thank you for that. All right. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and we will try and answer them as soon as we can. I hope you've all had a beautiful day. It's been a busy day for me. Today is our Child Neurology Society conference, a Child Neurology Society of Nigerian conference, and we're talking about optimizing health for children with special needs. And we had a presentation from parents, presentation from professionals, also presentation from the representative of the Nigerian government, and it has been a fruitful deliberation. And I hope that we're going to get children with disability as a outcome of this press. All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. I still can't see any questions. I hope there's nothing wrong, because I can see, which is very unusual. So let me just check that Facebook people are not dropping their questions under the posts and not going to the group now. I still don't see any questions. All right, so maybe today is not a day for people to have questions. I guess we answer questions all the time. No problem. All right. So I'm here, and if you have questions on any health issues, feel free to ask, and I will try and answer them within the time that we have. Okay. Oh, I've got my first question. I was going to, because a pediatrician, we're never short of something to talk about. So I was thinking I should just start to ramble about something important, but I think somebody is asking a question, so I will focus on the question. Good evening, Doc. Happy New Year. Please, how do I know that a baby is filled after breastfeeding? Very good question, Precious. Thank you first for breastfeeding your baby. We appreciate that. We want you to breastfeed your babies as the best way to feed your baby for the first 6 months of life. So the short answer to your question is, we expect the babies to suck, and then they will stop sucking when they are full. Just the same way you also stop eating when you're full. Of course, as human beings, some babies could be a bit greedy, and they will keep on sucking and sucking even when they are full, because the sucking for children is not just about feeding for them. Some of them actually suck for other reasons, which is one of these. Sucking is just for reasons why babies suck. So that is most times, most babies, when they are home, they just know and just stop. But if your baby doesn't stop, someone will say, "Oh, the baby is always sucking and doesn't want to stop." You can see also, other ways by which the baby can be full is that you can see that the tummy is full. You start feeding the babies, you see the tummy is empty, flat. But as they fill up, you will see, even if you open the clothes, you will see that this tummy is full. And you start seeing that some babies, when they're feeding themselves, they want to start to vomit because there's really no enough space. But majority of babies on their own will stop sucking once they are full, and then when they are hungry again, because the body has all those regulatory mechanisms which we all have. So you also know when you are hungry, you also know when you're full. The babies also have those senses also in them. So in another 3 hours or so, then when they feel hungry again, then they start giving you cues that they want to suck again. So that is how you know. I know a lot of mothers, because pediatricians will tell you that baby should have so volume of milk, of breast milk per day, and all that. All those things are just for guidance, for you to have an idea. But you don't need to like express your breast, because some mothers, because of that, they are anxious and that they want to express the breast milk, and then they want to know that the baby is getting enough quantity and all that. If your baby is sucking well and sucking frequently, as maybe every 3 hours, baby is sleeping well, you are changing the diapers, baby is gaining weight, then that means your baby is getting enough breast milk. So there's no reason for you to start looking for how to measure it, or know that you don't have to be precise and all that about it. So most babies, we expect them to suck and we expect them to stop when they've had enough. And the evidence that we know that they're getting enough breast milk is that their weight begins to improve, and and they are happy, they're sleeping well. So then you know that. But if your baby is not gaining weight, baby is losing weight, then that is when you will worry about something not right. Okay, I hope, Precious, that is helpful. For more information on breastfeeding, you can go to our Facebook group, go to the guide section. We have a guide on breastfeeding where you can watch all the breastfeeding videos. These videos are also available on YouTube, Global Health Media videos, and on their website as well. They even have an app for it, Birth and Beyond app, so you can watch. But you don't need to be worried or anxious about it. Most babies will take enough and then they will stop. All right. The next question is by Precious. Okay, today is Precious Day, because the first question was by Precious Wisdom. Now we have a question by Precious Miss Summer. And good evening. I'm exclusive breastfeeding my baby. Good. She's 5 months plus now. And my mom keeps saying that breast milk is no longer satisfy her. I can just quickly pause there and tell you that breast milk is okay for your baby up to the first 6 months of life. Even after 6 months, when you start complementary feeding, breastfeeding is still going to be 80% of everybody is going to be hitting. So don't listen to your your mom. You can trust the pediatricians on this one. All right. I felt like I couldn't keep up with. You felt like you couldn't keep up with her demand, but I continue. She used to be very chubby. She still is, but I cannot feel her bones. So, you see, what we rely on, Precious, is not what you feel. It is not how you look. What we rely on is the weight of the baby. So what I want you to tell me was, what was your baby's birth weight and what was your baby's current weight? That is what is important, not what you feel and all that. Is okay. All those are very subjective feelings. So we are more interested in what the baby's weight is. And of course, babies will grow. Babies double their birth weight by 5 to 6 months, and then they triple it at 1 year. So each time you go to the hospital for immunization and other, they should weigh your baby. So that is what is important. The most important way, which is very good question that you've asked, the most important way to know that your baby is getting enough breast milk is by the weight gain. It's by the weight gain. So that is why it's so important. But remember that weight is not just only about feeding. I've had a podcast. If you go to our podcast, YouTube, whatever, there's a broadcast we did about growth in children. Growth in children is dependent on several factors. It depends on genetics. It's also dependent on of course, food, but also dependent on health issues. So if a baby has, some babies are small because they are generally small in their families. So it's no matter amount of food you load the baby with, there will always be this particular weight. It will still be normal weight, but they may not be like, because I know most mothers want the baby to be very big, That's not what matters. What matters is that the weight is normal, not that the baby is chubby or the baby is big or is fat. Most mothers like that, but that is not what we pediatricians are after. We are after that the weight is normal for their age. So people that have what we call constitutional the genetic tendency to be small. They will always be small, no matter how much food they eat. Then some babies could have medical issues, and sometimes the very first time we know there's something like an health issues is from the fact that the baby's weight, you know, may not be going up as it should be. We call it failure to thrive, and that may not necessarily. It may be food, or maybe it's not getting enough food, but sometimes it may not just be food. Some babies can have a hole in their heart, for example, and then they will not be thriving. So there are other reasons for that. So for us, the most important thing is that breast milk will be enough for your baby for the first 6 months of life. And if your baby is sucking breast and your baby is not gaining weight, then we need to know why, because there may be other reasons. So everything is not just about food. All right, you are giving me additional information that birth weight was 3 kilos and your baby is already 8 kilos. So, and you are telling us that your baby is not is having bones. Your baby is even overweight because your baby should have double at 6 months, which should have been like 6 kilos at 5 months. So if your baby already at 4 months, or less than 4 months, 14 weeks is actually 3.5 months. If your baby at 3.5 months is already weighing 8 kilos, that is actually over what we expect for that age. So you cannot be telling us that baby who is weighing. I guess maybe what you are feeling is your baby was already very big, too big at 3 months. So you are now feeling that I don't know what the weight is now, which is very important. So maybe the baby's weight is becoming more like what it should be, and you're feeling maybe, or maybe it's just the same, and you're feeling maybe the baby should have gotten bigger. No. So if you are worried, I would just say just take your baby to the your clinic or health center, wherever you normally go, and let them check the weight for you. And if they check it, like I said, what we expect for your baby is actually anything 6 kilos. That is the average weight. I'm not saying that if your baby is a little bit more, maybe 7 or even still 8, that is something to worry about. That is still okay. But your baby should be, what we expect is just for your baby to double, and that should be 6 kilos. So I'm definitely not worried about your baby. And it also shows that you are feeding your baby well, and your baby is getting enough breast milk. And perhaps maybe you are tending towards the overfeeding part. So don't be moved. A lot of mothers ask me that question. My baby is not chubby. My baby is not chubby. And people want the baby to be chubby. They want the baby to be fat. And I understand the feeling, but the truth of the matter is that for us as pediatricians, too much of everything is bad. We don't want your baby to be small. We also don't want your baby to be too big. If baby is too fat, it's also a problem. What we call overnutrition or overweight is also a problem, because you're putting more pressure on the heart of the baby. So we want baby to be normal. So there's a normal average weight. That is what we want. We don't want them to be too much above. We don't want them too much below. So most mothers worry about baby not being below, whereas they don't worry about baby having too much, which can also be a problem. So from the little you've sent to us, Precious, I think your baby's weight is fine. If you want us to be more specific, just go with the baby now, and send us the weight for the 5.5, the current age of the baby, and we can also reassure you both, just continue your breastfeeding. And when your baby is 6 months, that's when you can now start adding other food. So don't worry yourself and don't panic, okay? I believe you're fine. All right, just let me know if you have any more clarification. All right, Jessica Young, good day. Yeah, good day to you too, Jessica. Your question, sorry, is it compulsory for a 1 year and 6 months should have at least 6 words? Because my baby has 3 words. It says constantly, understand simple words without gestures and points to things to get attention. Is there a cause for concern? Okay, so everything is a range, Actually, by 18 months, we expect your baby to have more than 6 words at 18 months. So, okay, so usually by 18 months, we expect them to be having nothing less than 20, 24. So, but it does not necessarily mean that anything is wrong with your baby. It may just be that your baby is just a little bit a little bit slower in terms of the speech, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong. Yeah, I am picking my words very carefully. Okay, so sometimes, right, let me give you a good example. So we expect a baby to walk, most babies walk by 1 year, 12 months. But some babies will still not walk at 12 months. They may walk at 18 months, okay? And they are still normal. There's nothing wrong with them, but they are still within normal, but they're just a little bit behind, the average. So that average is when 50% of children will do things, but some children will still be normal, but they will not do it at that age that we expect 50% of children to do it. They may do it closer to 17 months, but they got to an age where we worry. So if by 18 months then the child is not walking, then we're definitely going to be worried. So the same thing applies to speech. So usually for an 18-month-old, I expect that child to be saying a lot more than 6 words. All right. So but it may just be that because you said the child is always otherwise understanding and all that. What I would recommend is that if you're worried about it, obviously for you to have asked me the question is something that you are concerned about, and obviously you've gone to do some research about it. So if you are worried enough about it to ask a question and maybe to do a little bit of research, I would say then it doesn't cost any, or it doesn't cost anything for you to just get a professional review. And even most speech therapists tend to wait for, just like the way we wait for children to walk at 18 months before we start to intervene. Sometimes for the speech therapists, they want to wait on the children about 2 years before they even start to worry about them at all. So option one is to wait until your baby is 2 years old and see whether the child is now catching up and is combining words together, at least 2 words together. And then if that is happening, then that may be it. You may not need to worry. But alternative is to just have a quick review by a speech therapist. Let them just look at the child. There are other things that we look for in children beyond the words they speak. A lot of parents worry about what we call expressive speech. How many words can my child say? But when we professionals are evaluating children, we're looking beyond the words. We're looking at the what we call the pre-verbal skills. We are looking at, are they giving eye contact? Are they interacting? Are they doing pretend play? So there are things that actually we can evaluate for beyond just the number of words that they say. So which is what the speech therapist or the developmental pediatrician we be looking at. So we don't just focus on the expressive speech, we focus on the receptive speech, which is the understanding. We focus on the symbolic play. We focus on the social interaction, gestures, which you mentioned, eye contact. So there are many things we're looking at. So sometimes parents are worried about, oh, she's not only saying words, and the speech therapist will evaluate the child and will pick up other things, and then they may worry. Or they may evaluate the child and notice that every other thing else is fine. So they are sure that the words also will come with time, so they're not going to worry about it. So that is the different kind of situation. So for me, I would just say you can either wait until your child is 2 years before you see a speech therapist, but if you're worried now, then you may want to see a speech therapist now as well. Because one of the things which I was telling us earlier, because we did the conference today, one of the things we want to emphasize is early intervention works. The earlier we pick up a child who may have any difficulties, it doesn't matter what is causing it, or maybe it's just the child is a little bit delayed. We lose nothing by doing intervention, because early intervention actually works and it's best for the child and for the parents. So if you're worried, I would just say see a speech therapist, but if not, you can just wait and you can review it later. So that's just what I would say for that. Precious, okay, you say you will weigh the child again. Okay, so weigh the child, but meanwhile, just continue your exclusive breastfeeding until 6 months. Don't fall for pressure. I don't know why there's so much pressure on people not breastfeeding. I think in Nigeria sometimes we try to pressure people to do the wrong thing rather than pressure them to do the right thing. I don't know why. It's always very fascinating that people that tend to do the right things are the ones that are being pressured and being ridiculed and all that, rather than being encouraged. So, but don't even be the only person that's going to encourage you. I will do that, and I take that very seriously, because I know a lot of you tell us, so it's because of your encouragement that we did it. So I really, really want to make sure I always encourage people to do the right thing. So we are in your corner. Keep breastfeeding your baby. Go and watch our videos on how to go about complementary feeding. Start getting ready for the complementary. Just 2 more weeks anyway, and then you can start. And even when you start complementary feeding, it is not weaning. You are not taking the baby off breast milk. You are still going to be breastfeeding the same way you are doing now. It's just that we now know that at that point your baby need more than breast milk, and you can now start to add other food, and that is where that comes in. And then you can now start to give your baby the other food as well. So no need to worry, but the way to help us to, I guess, reassure you much better. All right, so we're still on ATP Live. Feel free to ask your questions. Any questions on your children health issues? I can't see any question for Instagram people today. I'm really concerned about Instagram people because I'm trying something new. Yeah, there's a question on Instagram. Why is it not showing on my hand? Okay, so let me read it. So Tinile Cakes and Pastries. You said your baby was delayed as well, up to 18 months. I even booked a session with speech therapist, but all of a sudden she started speaking now. She talks me out of the house. Exactly. Thank you for sharing your experience. I hope that will reassure Jessica. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sometimes, yes, sometimes some children are just a little bit slower, and sometimes, as parents, I guess we tend to it's natural. I think it's part of our CV to be anxious and to worry. I don't bother telling parents not to not to worry anymore. I think you can't stop people from worrying. I think what matters more to me is what you do with your worry. So do something about it. That's more important. So I'm happy you're asking the questions. The other mother said, some parents haven't booked a session with speech therapist. By the time the speech therapist sees your child and the child is doing everything, even sometimes they also come for developmental assessment. We see the child, we're like, what are you doing in my clinic? Because the child has now caught up and they're doing well. If at all, if it's just that reassurance, it's okay. It's better to just get the reassurance, and it's better than to. I don't like the situation where you now say, oh, I should have come 1 year ago, I should have come earlier. No, it's better to come and we tell you, oh, the baby's fine, go home and worry not. It's still okay, don't worry. So rather than for you to delay coming and then we now say, oh, if you have come a year earlier, we could have done better. So feel free to go check your baby out. Don't worry about the fact that after coming is as if you wasted your money. Don't worry. It's still better to get that reassurance. At least your mind will be at rest, if nothing else. So that's good. Yeah. So I think there's something I'm not seeing Instagram comments. So I think I better be checking it here so that I don't miss the comments. I don't know why Instagram's comments is not showing on my hand. I know Instagram is lacking behind a little bit, but I'll watch whether it will show. All right. Jessica, you're still asking a question. How do we know if STEMI is normal or not? Okay, STEMI is not normal. Okay, so if your child if it's the same child worried about the speech that is also having STEMI behavior, then you definitely have to take a child to a speech therapist. So STEMI behavior is a way, but who don't, is like some behavior that you do. They use it to kind of regulate themselves. Some of them may either shake their hands or they rock and rock, and they do all these repetitive movements. So it's as if they are trying to feel the environment and all that. It's something we commonly see in children who are on the autism spectrum. We also see it in children who have got other developmental disabilities as well and all that. So we always want to investigate any child who is having STEMI behavior. It's not something we expect to be normal for any child. Okay, so it may be, it's not only autism that can explain it. So that's why I'm not going to say it means the child is autistic, but there are other things. So, but it's definitely telling her something needs to be evaluated in this particular child. So we need to be, number one, we want to be sure it's not even a seizure. We need to be sure it's the proper STEMI, and if it is STEMI, is it a sensory processing issue? Is it an autism issue? And all that. So we don't classify STEMI as normal. It is not normal at all. It's something that is telling us something, and we need to know what is it telling us. So that is that part about the STEMI. All right. I hope that is helpful. So like I said, if it is the same child that we're worried about STEMI, then I will recommend that you take the child to see a speech therapist first, and then they can decide whether you need to whether they need to send the child to see a developmental pediatrician. Yeah, head shaking. Yes, I understand what you are saying, Jessica. Any repetitive behavior in children, I will worry about it. Okay, any child that is just always shaking their head, that is always stamping their feet, and especially in the context of that same child who you are worried about speech delay, I'm definitely going to be worried about that child. That child definitely needs to see a specialist. Usually will for that age, 18 months, you can hopefully see the speech therapist if that's the only thing you're worried about. If there are other things, other developmental delay, then you have to see a developmental pediatrician, and let's just start having a look at the child and make sure that we're not missing out anything. All right. Let me see. Do I have any questions? No, no question. All right. So when it comes to development, it is something that changes rapidly. So children are growing. Sometimes we have what we call developmental delay. Children are just a little bit delayed. There's nothing wrong, and then they will catch up with time, and they'll be fine. But sometimes it will also be a sign that there's something going on. Like children may have autism, they may have learning disability, they may have all the neurodevelopmental conditions. So, one of the things we want is that you come to us on time. When it comes to development, time is key. Early intervention works. So we always want to see the children early. All right. Okay, I think I've said that one. Okay. Um, all right. I don't think I have any question. Let me just check my Instagram. People have not asked any question. Um, no. All right. So again, for those of you who are just joining us, I can see you. If you have any questions about your children health issues, feel free to post. Feel free to ask it for the live answers. But remember that if you are watching this as a repeat, um, like you're watching the recording, I'm live now. But for those who are watching later after 6 p.m. West African time on Monday, then you're most likely watching a recording. And if you're watching the recording, you should post your questions on our Facebook group, Ask the Pediatrician Facebook group. You can post your questions anytime, Mondays to Saturdays, and our moderators, pediatricians, professionals, admin team will be there to um, help you with that. Okay. I think Jessica is here has some question for me, but the M chat is telling me too. Okay, so M chat is what you put in is what computer people will call garbage in, garbage out. So M chat is going to ask you questions, and you are the one that's going to answer the M chat. So it's going to ask you 20 questions, and which is the answer you get is what you put in. Okay. So if you are putting, that everything is fine, then the MChat is going to tell you nothing is wrong. So that is how MChat works. So it is what you put in. So that's why we sometimes have what we call the MChat follow-up. And in the MChat follow-up, usually it's the pediatricians or the professionals. We actually do the MChat follow-up in a way that we ask you that questions, those same questions, and we are very specific. We are asking you very, very specific. Because I know sometimes the question, because it's a yes or no, sometimes parents struggle to answer yes or no because sometimes the child is doing it the right way, but other times the child is not doing it way. So sometimes the question is, should I say yes or no? Because it is not as if it is every time that is a yes, but it's also not as every time that is a no. So I know that that's the problem with MChat. Those kind of questions that you have to either go for a yes or you are going for a no. So definitely you have to pick one, and sometimes you are not sure whether you should lean towards the yes or you should lean towards the no. And that is why we do the MChat follow-up, where we actually ask you details. So that we do MChat follow-up actually for those who are scoring between 3 and 7. So if you are scoring 2, that means there's no problem. But like I told you, if you are not worried, just leave the child alone. Leave it for now. You can wait for 2 years. Wait and see whether all these steamy behavior resolve, whether your child's speech picks up. Your child is still young, so I'm not really particularly worried. But if by 2 years you can repeat it again or another, but one thing you are telling me, even though you are not telling me, is that you are worried. Okay, you've gone to read about how many words your child should have. You've gone online to do MChats. You are a worried mom. Only moms that are worried do all those things. Okay, and so because of that, I will say go and see the professionals. Even if it's just for the professionals to tell you there's something to worry about, it's better you go and do it. So you will stop, you know, worrying yourself over everything. Okay, if you are not worried, you won't be doing all this. So that alone tells me that maybe you should actually just have a specialist have an opinion. Or if you are not too worried, that's my assumption anyway. If you are not too worried, you can always um wait until your child is um 2 years old, and then you can take it up from there. That's what I would say. Okay, I don't know why. I don't know. Okay. Oh, okay. So we won't be able to see comment from Instagram. All right. So okay, so I will read the question from Instagram. Good evening. More global properties. At what month can a baby start to take Indomie noodles? Okay. Um Number one, it's not compulsory for babies to take Indomie noodles. Let's just start with that. And then but if you want to give it anything you want to give that is no milk, you can start from 6 months old. That is when you can do things like noodles and stuff like that. So you can always do that from 6 months old. But when it comes to noodles, there's been a lot of back and forth, because a lot of mothers sometimes now just give their babies noodles all the time, and the child doesn't eat other food. And noodles is mostly just uh, carbohydrates and maybe some of these flavors and all that. So it's not really one of the real food that we want you to just make your child to be eating all the time. So if at all you're going to give your child noodles, you need to be mindful of that, and you need to make sure you add all the things. So we want you to definitely add veggies. So whether it's called carrots or peas or whatever, you need to add veggies to it. You need to add protein. So whether you're going to boil egg or something. So, and please, let's give our children variety of food. Let them not just be stuck on noodles day and night. Also, make sure you are very careful with the seasoning. It's a little bit high in salt, So, if possible, if you are going to use it at all, just very little. Do you cannot put the whole sachet into it, okay? So, but we would rather you give your child other things and things that how do we call it, things that are more nourishing and all that. So that is what I would like to say. So I hope I didn't miss any Instagram people's questions. I just realized that I won't be able to see your comments on the on stream yet, so I will have to come check here. But Chanel, what I'll do is to copy your question and paste it. um okay, so can I pin comment? Okay, Shana Hole, he's asking, my baby stopped sucking at 5 months. Is it possible? Is it something for me to be worried about? Is 6 months now and raking his food well. What do you mean raking? You mean he's eating well? Okay, and it's taking. Okay, taking. Okay, thank you for letting me know that. Yeah, so it is very unusual for your baby to stop eating at to stop taking food at what do you call it, has 5 months. That's so, were you doing exclusive breastfeeding or were you doing mixed feeding? I think that's the very first question I would like to ask you, because if you are not doing um if you are doing exclusive breastfeeding, your baby should not be stopping breastfeeding at 6 5 months. That is not normal, and that shows most likely you're doing mixed feeding. Chanel, can you tell me which one you're doing? And if you're doing mixed feeding, what you did is you practically weaned the child of breast milk, and so that's why baby is no longer taking breast milk, but your baby still need breast milk. Okay, you'll be seeing it breast milk at 5 months, 6 months, you'll be seeing it breast milk. Not because of the food. And if you understand that what we've talked about breastfeeding during our breastfeeding week, breastfeeding is about protecting your baby from infections and all the things. So there are things that your baby can only get from breast milk. All those antibodies, all those cells, all those things that protect your baby, that develop your baby immune system, they can only be getting from breast milk. There's no food that is going to give the baby that. So I would still encourage you to still put them, because your baby is just 6 months, so it's not too far that your baby stop breastfeeding. You can see reinitiate breastfeeding. You can still put that baby back to breast, let the baby suck, and that breast can still flow. If you need help around it, you can get the nurses, doctors to help you. But it's too early to win a baby at 6 months. Your baby need all that breast milk, so you can still try to give that. But your baby is eating other food, make sure you're giving other balanced diet. Make sure your baby is taking milk. Your baby is taking milk for the first 5 years of life. They need to be taking milk. So, and if you're not breastfeeding, you have to make sure you give alternative milk. But if you can get your baby back breastfeeding, your baby should be getting it. So everything is not just about feeding, it's not just about food, it is about also protecting the baby. There are so many things that your baby get from breast milk that you're not going to get from any other food. So yeah, so you started so you started mixed feeding. That was too early. Please, I'm telling you this now because maybe you're still going to have another baby, so that you don't do the same thing again. Please, you are going to breastfeed exclusively for 6 months. No mixed feeding at 4 months. Everything is, the first 6 months of life is breastfeeding. And even when you start complementary feeding at 6 months, you don't stop breastfeeding and you don't reduce, because this is a mistake most of us sometimes we make. Not most of us mothers make. When we begin to do complementary feeding, then we actually consciously or unconsciously stop breastfeeding, because we think your baby is eating every food. Why, but your baby still need that breastfeeding. So you should still make sure you are breastfeeding as much as possible, in addition to just to the other food. Otherwise, and then when you start, most likely you were doing a lot more of the feeds, because obviously it's easier to just prepare those ones than your baby sucking from your breast. So invariably the baby just feel, why do I need to suck? Because sucking is a lot of work for babies. It's easier for you to just put something in baby's mouth than for the baby to suck the milk out. So most mothers just begin, you don't give them those babies food so much, then baby feel there's no need for breastfeeding. That's why they stop. So you have to be very conscious that you are, which is what we call winning. That is exactly what is winning. So when you are breastfeeding and you're giving other food, you have to be conscious that you are not trying to replace breast milk. So don't give too much of the other food. There's an amount you're supposed to give a day. There's a frequency you're supposed to give, and the rest of it should be breastfeeding. So if you don't do it that way, then the baby is going to stop breastfeeding. So maybe when you have another opportunity, I want you to know that, so you don't get to have the same mistake. And just trust us when we say your baby should have breast milk only for 6 months. These are evidence-based, research-based recommendations. This is WHO units, everybody, not just And whether you are in US or Nigeria, it's the same recommendation. We want you to exclusively breastfeed for 6 months, and then you start complementary feeding at 6 months. Why you keep breastfeeding? We want you to breastfeed as long as 1-2 years minimum, and because there are things that we will only get from breast milk and not from anywhere else. So that is what how we're. So if your baby is not sucking breast milk, Chanel, then what you need to do is to make sure you are giving milk that has as much things like DHA and all that. You have to really make sure all those nutrients are some things that your baby will not get from food and all that. You are giving a milk that can still give it. Of course, you're not going to get the one that will give antibodies and all that. You can't get that one. So you need to put more attention to preventing your baby from catching infections and all that, which breastfeeding would have helped with. All right. Let me just go to Adelaide Hamabuateng. Okay, that's from Facebook. Say good evening. My baby is 6 months, 2 weeks. This is speed deficiency. Can you take vitamin C syrup? Okay. The vitamin C itself is not the problem, okay? But there are other things you will react to, and when you want to give things like syrup, you have to also look at what we call excipients, things that they've used to mix the syrup, because there are other things that they won't write on it, but they are present in there, and you have to be sure your child is not going to be reacting to that. Generally, I would recommend that you don't give your child unnecessary drugs. Why do you want to give the child vitamin C? There's no need for you to give the child vitamin C syrup if a doctor has not recommended it. Give your child fruits, give your child veggies. The child will get the vitamin C from that. So you can mix, you can squeeze out your orange and give the child. That is better than for you to be buying vitamin C syrup. You can squeeze out all the fruits. There's no fruit your child cannot eat, and most of the citrus fruit your baby will get the vitamin C. We prefer that. And for you, especially that you're worried, I don't know whether your doctors gave you a list of things to avoid in your child who has GCPD deficiency. If you don't have that list, you need to ask for it, or you can Google and see whether you can get it online. So I'm sure we should have a list somewhere on ATP on what to avoid in GCPD, because we actually have a discussion on GCPD before, but I think I've asked the doctor we did it to do it again. So you will have a list of all the things to avoid. But mostly there are the sulfur drugs. There are some drugs that have sulfur inside. Those are the ones mostly. Then there are certain food as well. We don't tend to have those food in Nigeria, but I know there's fava beans and all that. So, but for drugs, really, you need to be careful, because there are many drugs, and most important thing is that make sure you don't give any drug that your child a doctor is not prescribing. That's number one. Number two, whenever you're going to take the drugs, always ask the pharmacist so that they can check. All of us we can always check it and check quickly through it, make sure that this is something compatible with a child with GCPD deficiency. So we always check for you. We can't memorize everything, but we can always check. And the pharmacist will know all the other things that are present in that so-called vitamin C syrup that you will not know, and will need to check that those things are compatible for a child who has GCPD deficiency. So that's what I can say about that. All right. Let me just check Instagram people again. Okay, I don't think there's any more question on Instagram. So for Instagram people, if I've missed your question before, feel free to ask again and I will answer them, because I thought I would see your question on StreamYard, but it's like StreamYard cannot show your questions, so we'll still see only Facebook questions. Okay, Precious is still asking, how do I handle distraction when breastfeeding? There's nothing, most babies sometimes get distractions. They are getting to that age where they are interacting with the environment. There's nothing wrong with that. What you need to do is that when you are breastfeeding, you try and breastfeed in a quiet place with little or no distraction around. That's all you can do, but it's something that babies do. And sometimes some of those sucking too may not be that the baby wants to suck, maybe it's just playing around with you. So, but usually when they are really hungry, they will suck, no matter whatever distraction they may have around them. So, but what you are describing is something we know is real, because which is particularly, it's a developmentally appropriate thing for babies to do. We actually want them to do that. We want them to look around. We want them to no other things apart from breast milk. So it is normal. But we don't just want them to now, get so distracted they don't want to suck, So, but usually most babies, when they are really hungry, they will suck. So, and one thing mothers also need to realize that once your baby are getting bigger, they suck faster. So before, when they are like newborn babies, they may take 30 minutes to suck certain volume of milk. But when they are, 3 months, 4 months, within 1 minute, they can take a lot more breast milk because they are now more efficient in sucking. They are now experienced, so they are more effective. So sometimes mothers worry because baby is not staying as long on the breast like they were doing before. It's because they are bigger, they are mature, they have stronger sucking skills now. So they don't need to stay like 10, 20 minutes like when they were babies to suck, to drain your breast completely, because they are more effective in doing it. So it's not something by time and all that. You will know it too from the way your breast feels. So because when you want to breastfeed, your breast is full, it's heavy, and then when baby is sucking, you see it drains and you see it becoming empty or flat. So you know the baby has drained it. So the baby doesn't need to stay 10, 20 minutes to drain it like you would have done when it was 1 month old. By the time they're about 4 or 5 months, they are a little bit, they're able to do it faster in a shorter time. So don't need to worry about that. I hope that's helpful. Okay. We still don't have any question on Instagram. So do I have any question on Facebook? Not anything yet. All right. So we have just about 10 more minutes. So if you have any question, feel free to ask your questions, and then we will round up. And for those who are watching the repeats or the recording, feel free to post your questions directly to our Facebook group. So we've had a lot of questions today on breastfeeding. So usually we take breastfeeding every August. That's our breastfeeding week, 1st of August to the 7th of August. We're still going to do it again. And we've also had a lot of questions on a little bit of question on complementary feeding. We are going to have another session on complementary feeding because I think it's one of the questions, one of the topics that parents like to ask about, and some people really struggle with it. And I think it's because sometimes we are not always sure of how to go about it, but it's something that once we have the guideline, the principles behind it, we are able to do it properly. So there's no issue. So just watch out. And luckily for those on Instagram now, we'll also be streaming the ATP Hour on Instagram at the same time like we usually do on Facebook. So you can also watch all the ATP Hour sessions. So we have lots of people that will be coming talking about all these different topics. So that you can always ask more questions. All right. Okay. Adelaide say I asked a nurse concerning vitamin C syrup. He has flu, running nose. So she asks that I buy vitamin C and nasal drop. Okay, the truth of the matter is that most babies that have running nose and stuff like that. How old is your baby? Can you remind me? Your baby is 6 months old. Okay. Most of them, it is a viral infection. The vitamin C is not a treatment for a viral infection. Nasal drops is not like a treatment for runny nose. If your baby's nose is running, you don't need a nasal drop. You need a nasal drop, which is normal saline, if the nose is blocked. The child has mucus blocking the nose, and the catarrh or whatever, the nasal discharge is not flowing out. So in that instance, you can apply the nasal drops, the saline, to soften the mucus so that it can flow. But if it is flowing, don't forget about the nasal drops. So for you, most viral infections, which is what is causing the runny nose, they are going to go by themselves. You don't need to do anything about it. They will go by themselves. So most people just give vitamin C because vitamin C is just something that tends to strengthen your body immune system to fight infection. But like I told you, it is not only when you take vitamin C syrup that they sell in the shops that you're going to get vitamin C. You get vitamin C from your oranges, you get vitamin C from your fruits that you have in your house, from your veggies. So it's still okay. So if you're breastfeeding your baby is eating well, you don't need to give any drugs, and the cough and the catarrh will go. More importantly, is to make sure you protect your baby from exposure to cough and catarrh itself. That is what you really need to do. So are there siblings that have cough and catarrh, or is there another adults? Because babies usually they are home, so they don't go out. So it is people from that go out that bring the catarrh or the infections to the babies. So you need to make sure babies are not cold, they're warm, and then you feeding, making sure you are still breastfeeding, because breastfeeding protects your baby against all these viral infections, including respiratory tract infections. And like I said, usually over 2 weeks, most of the cough and catarrh will go. If the child is having fever, the child is having fast breathing, in addition to the running nose, then that is when you have to go to the hospital, because we have to be sure there's no pneumonia. And if there is, then we can treat it appropriately. All right. I have a question on Instagram. Olufunke. It said, let me copy it so that I can put it for those on. Okay, let's just pin it first. How do I handle a baby who stop? Okay, this is just almost like the question that Chanel asked. Okay, I guess you are just joining us now, because you must have missed the parts where I answer Chanel's question. How do I handle a baby who stop breastfeeding despite every means to get her back? She takes formula and she now eats food. She's 7 months. Thank you, man. Okay, so I've answered that question, but I'll just give you a summary of it. Um, um, the most likely reason why babies tend to stop breastfeeding early is because consciously or unconsciously you wean the baby, and you already told me that your baby was on formula feeding. So sometimes when we're doing this mixed feeding, we kind of tend to do the other one, the formula more than the breast milk. And another thing is that formula for the babies is easier to take, because most of the time we give them through the bottles. We make a very big hole in the teeth of the bottle, so the baby doesn't need as much stress, to suck. To suck from a bottle or is easier than to suck from the breast because sucking from the breast is more work. So after a while the baby figure it out as intelligent beings that they are, that is, why should I need to stress myself sucking from my mother's breast when I put this bottle in my mouth, it just rush down. I don't even need to suck, it will just be rushing down my mouth. So that is why most time baby just stop sucking. So we call it nipple confusion. They go on then they don't want the breast and they just want the bottle, and which is also why we don't encourage bottle feeding as well. So that is what normally happen. And most time when we are now even start the complementary feeding, so it then becomes more of the formula, more of the solid food, and little or no breastfeeding. And after a while the breastfeeding just fade out. Baby don't just even want it anymore because you are not doing most of it anyway. So it is an unconscious decision mothers do. It's not the baby that stop feeding. We stop them from breastfeeding by adding all those other things that replace breastfeeding. So which is why we encourage you that you do exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months, and no bottle feeding, just breast directly. And when you are adding even the other food, you need to be conscious of the quantity and the frequency. And 80% of the food, even for a 6 month old, 7 month old, is still breast milk that it should be taking, not the formula, not the solid food. It is still the breast milk, and you are only adding the solid to support breast milk, not to replace. Because what has happened in this instance for Olufunke is that you have replaced the breast milk with the formula and the complementary food, which is unfortunate. What I would say is that you can still put your baby back to the breast. You can do that, and if you do that, it may um, work for the baby, but sometimes for some babies, it's just there's nothing else you can do, and that is it. So there's nothing more you can do about it, and just keep giving the baby um, all the other food that you're giving, and make sure you're also giving the baby breast milk that the baby still needs. So there's nothing more that you can do about it. Okay, our time is up. I'll just answer the remaining three questions I have, and then we can round up for the day. But like I said, if you still have questions, post it on our Facebook group. Now, what can be done to a 3-year-old with very few words? Some words he's saying before she stops saying it. This is a what we call a red flag for possible autism. So, Shanu Oluwakemi, your baby needs to see a developmental pediatrician straight away. Okay. Number one, a 3-year-old should be talking sentences. So if a 3-year-old is not talking sentences, that child has severe speech delay. Number two, a 3-year-old who was saying some words before and stop, we call it speech regression. That is a very big red flag for possible autism spectrum disorder. That child needs to see a developmental pediatrician. So this child needs to have an assessment, and then the child will also need some therapies, including speech therapy, definitely. I don't know whether there may be other ones. That will be when we have done the assessment, depending on the cause. But like I said, speech regression, red flag for possible autism. That child needs to have an assessment. So please take the child for it as soon as possible. And Tenola, uh, Adiola, I want to know if my baby has a tongue tie. I'll send the video to the email address already. Just post it, post the video on our Facebook group. We don't do email anymore. So just post it. Well, how old is your baby? Always tell us the age of the baby. That's also very important. Most of the time, mothers just worry so much about tongue tie, tongue tie. Most of the time, babies don't have any tongue tie, and most of the tongue tie is not what causes a child to have speech delay. And so I've written an article called "Much Ado About Tongue Tie." Mothers worry so much about tongue tie, and it's the least thing we should be worried about. And some mothers eventually go for what they call tongue tie cutting, and they cause more problem because the child now actually now develop tongue tie from the fibrosis of the unnecessary cutting and surgery. So I always say just leave your baby's tongue alone, all right? And if you worry about it, yes, it's okay for you to send us a video or to show your doctor, let them have a look at it. But most of the time, what we call tongue tie is just a normal frenulum. The frenulum is that thin membrane-like substance that join the tongue to the floor of the mouth. It is just a normal thing. It does not mean there's anything. And please don't go to all these charlatans. Some people are not even professionals. They are not even nurses or doctors or anything. And all they want to do is to just cause so-called tongue tie. So very, very careful so you don't end up getting into trouble. So Tenola, just post your video on our Facebook group. We'll have a look for you. But like I said, most times there's really no need to worry. All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. If you have any questions still, please join our Facebook group, our Facebook groups actually, and you can ask your questions after this live session. We answer questions Monday to Saturdays, 24 hours on our Facebook group. And if you want to support ATP, feel free to send your money to our account. You can donate, you can support any of our projects, and we will make sure we give you a feedback on how your money was spent. You can always trust us. So thank you so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful evening. Join us again on Thursday, where I'll be taking another important topic. I did a topic on anemia in children, and the feedback has been so amazing. A lot of questions about anemia, a lot of mothers are asking questions. So feel free to check it out. It's available on podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all the podcast platforms. It's available on YouTube. It's available on the Facebook group. It's available on Instagram. So you have so many options on where to watch them. All right. Thank you so much, and I will see you same time next week for ATP Live Monday. But I will also see you on ATP Hour. Bye.